Interesting relationships, and he builds on that. So you get the square. There's all these. This is also where we get contradictory, and sub-contraries, and contrary, right? All those different expressions all come from there, right? Notice as things moved on through history, we ended up with conflicts with Aristotle. You don't really have to get involved with that unless you take more of a logic course to see what happened, especially if you don't want to learn the notation that we use today. But the problem with it is in modern English, if I'm talking about something like a unicorn, right? All unicorns have one horn. Yes? Almost a tautology. I mean, some of the true statements that people sent me were, they went to tautologies, right? Which are true all the time by definition, right? Instead of like all horses are animals, which is true, but not a tautology, right? Tautology means it's true all the time. Right? So that's pretty cool. It is what it is, right? Okay. A little bit more difficult when you say something like A equals, maybe just 2, right? A, right? You say A equals A, of course. Well, you can point out that no, these two are not equivalent because this one's on the left and this one's on the right. It just can mess with anybody's mind with, if you get enough practice, right? But in any case, so the square, that's very important, and it's still part of our everyday, it's more involved or closely connected to our everyday life than ever, because all computer languages are built on this. If you go and you look at the modern notation, where, for example, we might say, if P then Q, but P, well, therefore Q, right? What am I talking about? I've got. Well, we're talking about, if P, then Q, but P is the case, so therefore we have Q, right? Well, each of these is a symbol representing an AEIO statement because they could be true or false. So if I go to a truth table, for example, here, I'll just go to this, right? So notice if I go to a truth table, what are we talking about? This is a statement that is either an AEIO statement. It's a variable, so it's a placeholder for any of those types of statements. And any of those types of statements, if it's not the case that P, well then under P it would be false. It would be false. What if it's true? It could be. It could be that you're wrong, or rather that it's true that not P, right? So for example, if I say all cats are dogs, well that's false. So it's false that all cats are dogs. So there are cases, what if it turns out to be the case that dogs and cats are the same? Well, then in that case it would have been false to say not P, right? Well, I don't want to get too involved in that, but what I want to point out is that even in modern notation, the P's and the Q's, or for anything you picks, etc., are all using AEIO statements. Or could be, so if you do take a logic course, a lot of them today, because there's so much to cover, especially if you want to get up to computer languages, you're not going to concentrate on Aristotle's logic, probably, right? But the thing is, it doesn't really make sense to do modern logic without knowing that it's built on the Aristotelian system. So you should get at least some examples of syllogisms. Let's try that. And I should explain, what are we doing here? Why is this there? So you could also call them propositions, notice. So every S is a P, that's the same as all S is P, etc. No S is P, no angel is mortal, and so on. You get the moods. So if all of my again, these guys would like to be over here.
This one just uses that side.
ED, I don't know.
There's also cleaning spray.
That's woman's room. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry. That was supposed to be funny.
It was funny.
I was just kidding.
It was funny. You don't have to. That was funny.
Now you made me forget what I was talking about.
You're welcome.
What was I doing?
You wanted to give us.
Okay. So if I had A, E, I, and O statements, and so one statement is true or false, but the next complex step is an argument. So if I'm talking about Saddam Hussein, I'll just say SH, Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein is a terrorist.
Is it good? Define this.
Well, we call him a terrorist in order for us to. Actually, it was terrorist, the way President Bush pronounced it. But and all terrorists are evil, right? So what we have is all terrorists are evil. Saddam Hussein is a terrorist, however you say it. So therefore, Saddam Hussein is evil. Okay. George Bush W. used this argument, right? And in fact, if you listen to his the speech to the nation, the presidential speech in January, it was AAA won all the way down. Every single argument was A. So this argument, all terrorists are predicate evil. All of the individuals named Saddam Hussein were terrorists. Therefore, so it's an A statement, an A statement, an A statement, and it's in a particular figure. In this case, 1, which, by the way, is considered the divine argument. It's so perfect, right? This, you can't disagree with it. You could disagree with the premises, but if you accept the premises, the argument is fait accompli. You might even say QED. And when you say that, you're supposed to look with your head as far back as you can, so that you're looking down at the person with, down your nose, and you say QED. As British or Bostonian an accent as possible, right? Which means quod erat demonstrandum, which was to be proved, right? My role model for that is William F. Buckley Jr. So, if you ever watched him on Firing Line or whatever, and he had arguments, QED, there you go. That argument is okay, right? So this is syllogisms, right? So you get into that, and what are we doing with syllogisms? Well, if you have an argument, what you're concerned about, are horses really animals? Do they have 4 feet? Because as far as Aristotle was concerned, knowledge is the list of all the categories, all the things, what kind of categories they're in, and their relationships to anything else, right? That's knowledge. That's the encyclopedia. And for Aristotle, that only required us to check every animal, write down all its parts, categorize it, mollusk, not a mollusk, right? And once you do that, you're done. There's knowledge, right? That's how easy it was. By the way, he was very successful for over 1,000 years, convinced everybody that had access to his works that he knew what he was talking about, and if you read those, you were all set. You know everything, basically, right? Because there it is. And by the way, that's why it was so difficult for folks like Galileo to disagree with it. Because it was like, everybody knows that this is Google? No. Everybody knows that this is the way things are. Aristotle, the philosopher, has said so, right? It's in the book. Just look it up. There you go. You're done. That's how easy knowledge was. In a very empirical sense, right? Not my fault. This is history, our history, right? How that works. The problem that the Renaissance was really the rebirth of the awareness of Aristotle in the West, because it got lost for a while. A lot of it, not the logic, but a lot of it got lost. But once it came back, everybody was just so thrilled. Now we know everything. For a while it was the Dark Ages, because we forgot, right? Now we know everything again. And then some individuals started analyzing what was going on in these Aristotelian books. Like 2 objects, a heavy object falls faster than a light object. Well, no. It turns out that Galileo and the Leaning Tower of Pisa, I'm convinced he really did use it, because it was really leaning at the time, so it was a perfect place to drop 2 objects, one heavier than the other one. Look out below and measure when they arrive, and it's pretty clear that unless there's air inhibiting the drop of, say, like a feather, right? And by the way, you can get rid of that. I can show you that real quick, I hope.
Looking for the moon video? There's a famous one of the hammer and feather on the moon too.
I'm pretty sure this is it. Yeah, this is it.
This is NASA's space dropped at the same time to see which fell.
So this is in a vacuum, so there's no air. Well, okay, so this is before the air is taken out. Sorry about that. But now we've sucked all the air out of this huge room. And here they go together.
The reason that if you couldn't see
Notice the feathers fall as fast as a bowling ball.
knowing the ball and the feathers.
Galileo was right, which proves one of the things that Aristotle said was wrong, right? So that's Aristotle didn't do experiments. If you saw the Aristotle's lagoon video, notice that was one of the points that the biologist made. Aristotle didn't experiment, didn't try to see, with in that video, he puts a cloth over a dead fish and leaves the other one open, and notice you get maggots on the fish that's open to the air, because you get flies. But you didn't get the flies into the other one, so it's obviously miserable looking dried out fish, but it's not loaded with maggots. Aristotle didn't experiment, and what we get with people like Galileo and others, they begin doing experiments. So that's kind of when Aristotle's volumes of knowledge suddenly become put under question, and you get what we call the scientific revolution. Scientific revolution was a revolution against Aristotelian thinking. By the way, at that point, the